Hey, Sam Rogers here for the Digital Learning Asset Framework. We're talking today about Principle 3 of the 5 core principles of the Digital Learning Asset Framework. So in the previous two videos, we talked about what is out of scope for the Digital Learning Asset Framework, what is in scope for the Digital Learning Asset Framework. If you haven't seen those videos yet, please go watch those first. This one's all about how we find the best experience. And as is in the one-page reference for the Digital Learning Asset Framework version 1.0. The best experience. There are no hard and fast rules about which media or delivery method is best for any given digital learning asset. And it may seem kind of odd to make that like a principle. Or counterintuitive for people who want to say, oh, well, if you have this kind of content, you should make that a video, or you should make that audio, or do some kind of multimedia VR thing with this kind of experience. But when we do that, we're focused on the content to the exclusion of the people, of the actual specific group that we are making that training for. And the Digital Learning Asset Framework is not just about the asset content, but also the overlap between the audience that's for, that is, the people who don't know something yet that need to know that thing, the skill, concept, or fact. How do we create assets that help that happen for that specific target group? So what this principle is about is that there's not one way to do that. However, there is a framework as part of the Digital Learning Asset Framework, those strategies, tactics, tools, and techniques that we can use to find that. So here's an example of one way in which we might do that. So we might employ a strategy to pre-validate those assets, to say it is possible to validate which kinds of digital learning assets perform best for our target audience, and we can do that prior to delivering them content. So a great example of that would be, what's going to work best? Should I make a video like this video? Should I make a video to help train people about the Digital Learning Asset Framework? Okay, well, what's a tactic that we could use to help figure that out? Well, we could do an asset type evaluation. We could test to determine which kinds of assets actually work best for that target group. Okay, there's an idea. What would be a tool that we could use to do that? Well, we could create a prototype of each different asset type that we're considering, and we could use that for testing purposes. So this is something that as a developer myself, I do commonly. First thing I do when I come in someplace, I do a lot of video consulting. I just try every different kind of video. I have a whole bank of 10-second videos in every different file format and type, and upload them to all the places where we would put them and see if people could use them. That would be the next technique. So this technique rolls up under that tool of having that asset library of all these different kinds of, in this case, video types that we could use. But maybe we're comparing games or different even audio formats, things like that. We can take that audience in this example technique and just do a random sampling. Send it out to a few people that are within our target group. That is, not the stakeholders, not the SMEs, but the actual people that have that identified knowledge gap, and see what works. It may be that, surprise, surprise, the video is too big to fit through the bandwidth of the network, or folks who are perhaps not in the same country have trouble getting this thing, through their firewall in a specific country. If they're in that target group, we don't want to create an asset that people in that target group cannot receive. What we're doing here with this third principle is testing to find out what will work for our target group. Again, this is just a sample. So we could take feedbacks of this random sampling and then make a determination as to what kind of assets are even available for this audience. Now, there are many other strategies that we could employ, many other tactics and tools and techniques that we could employ. This is just one example of how the principle and the framework work together. Tune in tomorrow for Principle 4, and we'll be looking at the full life cycle of assets, that they don't last forever. Information does, audiences don't. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Please leave comments below if you have questions, if you have ideas, if you have arguments against what we're saying here, improvements to the digital learning asset framework, stories to share. Would love to hear them. So please use the comments, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.